Did you ever think the Big Ten would ever ditch its less popular, less successful football schools? I used to think no way, but now I'm not so sure. I'll explain why. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today we are brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Would the Big Ten make cuts to its own teams and schools? We'll talk about that. Plus, we have the latest spring news, quarterback situations at Michigan, Ohio State, and Caitlin Clark is ready for the postseason. And we'll close it out with our weekend basketball picks. Last weekend of the regular season here. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Well, the Big Ten and other conferences have all been about expanding and growing and collecting as much money as humanly possible, right? And the Big Ten currently is at 18 teams. And you know as well as I know, it's not stopping there. They're going to continue to grow. And while I have no doubt about that, would they ever sit for a moment and decide to kick out one of their own, kick one of their schools to the curb, right? Maybe. I don't know. Would they say goodbye to a football school that never wins, has very little hope of winning? Maybe that team doesn't do so well in the ratings or sell a lot of merch outside its own state. For example, would the Big Ten ever get rid of a school like Indiana or Purdue or Northwestern, despite their breakthrough year last year in football, or Rutgers, even Illinois or Maryland? You see where I'm going here? These schools are nowhere near the revenue makers of Michigan and Ohio State, Penn State, Southern Cal, Oregon, not even close. But these schools, the big schools at the top, the schools that struggle at the bottom, they all collect the same check at the end of the year. They all get the $75 to $100 million. They all get the same share, regardless of where they are in the pecking order in the conference from all that money for the billions of dollars they're getting from the TV deals every single year, no matter what, no matter how poorly things are going. The SEC is in the same situation with Vanderbilt, maybe Missouri. They're just not ratings getters. In the Big Ten, the new football contract, they just started last year with NBC, right? Remember, we all watched it together. We went live with our Locked On Big Ten podcast after the Saturday night game on NBC, usually. And every single Saturday night, they had a matchup. Indiana was never on the NBC schedule. NBC didn't want to schedule them. They didn't want to schedule them because they didn't think they'd get any ratings on a Saturday night. That's just the way it is. Look, we have a smart audience here at Locked On Big Ten, and we all know that college athletics, especially college football, is becoming more and more about big business. And nobody is better at big business than the Big Ten. Not even the SEC, not the Big 12, nobody. On the other side of the coin, the Pac-12 was horrible at business, and now they don't exist anymore. The ACC, they're not far behind after signing that horrendously bad 13-year media rights deal with ESPN, and now they're about to implode. Do conference bylaws even allow for a conference to say so long to a school? Or would a one-time billion-dollar buyout ever be offered for a school to go away? They weren't carrying their weight. Certainly, program success can be cyclical. Look at Nebraska. For you younger people out there, once upon a time, Nebraska was the Alabama of today. They were a powerhouse every year. Can they ever get back there? Probably at some point in our lifetimes, but who knows? Schools are ditching long-standing rivalries just to make more money. who's to say conferences wouldn't ditch a founding member school if it wasn't pulling its weight? You have to think about it. I don't think we have to think about it today or tomorrow, but maybe it's coming. Maybe by the year 2030s or something like that. Schools like Indiana and Kentucky and the SEC, at least they could always say, hey, we're brand name basketball schools. But that doesn't even seem to be important anymore. Plus, Indiana hasn't been a brand name basketball school in a while either. They have struggled. And of course, basketball is not as lucrative as football. This is a football country now, from coast to coast, from border to border. Today's athletics is about greed and it's about money. And everyone is in on it. The conferences, they get as much money from the TV networks as possible. The TV networks turn around and get as much money from streaming and advertising as possible. The coaches get as much money as possible. More and more are making more than $10 million a year. The name, image, and likeness collectives, they're collecting as much money as possible so they can attract the best players possible at their schools. And then the players, they're making choices not on where they can get the best education. That's not even a thought, it seems like these days. Or even find the best place to launch an NFL career from. They are deciding on which school to go to based on where they can collect the most nil money right away as freshmen, as sophomores, ready to go. That's what Nick Saban even said recently. He says it wasn't the sole reason that he retired, but it was certainly part of it. So the kids are all about where they can go and get as much money as possible. And then he brought up a good point. Where are they going to be when the nil money runs out and the football's over at age 27? And no degree, by the way. We've talked about that before. We'll get into that again, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. I'll go back to my original question here. Would a conference like the Big Ten or the SEC discard a member school and replace it with a more profitable option? As of today, I would say no. I'm not sure that it's worth dropping a Purdue just to pick up a North Carolina or a Virginia. Seems like a wash. I still think there's enough room to grow in the conference by adding the Florida States or the Utahs or the Notre Dames or whatever you want to have. It's a different team every single day. And right now with the Big Ten at 18 schools, there's still room to grow without kicking anybody out. But that begs the question, is there a saturation point? I mean, I'm not so sure I could sit here and say that a conference wouldn't make cuts to teams down the road, as I said earlier, but nothing surprises me anymore. But what is that saturation point, by the way? Would they look into making cuts for teams that weren't carrying their own weight once they got to 20, 24, maybe 30 teams is the answer. And I think the Big Ten and the SEC could climb as high as 30 teams in the future. I don't know. 24, I almost think definitely. 30, they get to that. That's a lot more schools to add. And that's way into the future. I mean, maybe not totally in the future. They may add a couple, next year, maybe a couple more 2 years later, whatever the case may be. It'll take a while to get up to 30 unless everything around it just blows up in the ACC and the Big 12. And then it's a case of musical chairs. But I think we're a long way from the point of bouncing teams out because they're not as attractive as some other teams. I mean, think about it. If the Big Ten right now was going to go to 30, they're at 18 now. Quick math. That's 12 more teams. By the time you get to team 8, 9, 10, 12, are those schools are they going to be a Virginia or a North Carolina? Is that going to be worth kicking out in Indiana or Rutgers? Probably not at that point. If we're going to go that big, probably not. But in this day and age, I wouldn't put anything past anybody. All these ideas are out there, and I think it's something to consider in the future. What about you? What do you think? Crazy idea? I mean, I've heard some people talking about it. It's out there, and crazier things have happened when we're talking about college football here. Love to hear from you. You can hit me up on Twitter or X at TalkBig10. Also comments at TalkBig10.com, and comments on YouTube would be welcome as well. So I appreciate you checking us out today and giving us your input as well. Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes are getting ready for the postseason and hopefully making a big run. We'll discuss how they are really ready for the most part. And Ohio State and Michigan, spring football, lots of questions at quarterback for both of these teams. We'll peek in on all of that. It's coming up next right here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. I want to tell you about Fire TV. It's your destination for sports with live games, to highlights, to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can literally plug into your existing TV, and it provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. And whether it's the opening weekend for baseball, which is coming up, or college basketball tournament, which we're just right on the doorstep of, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And check this out. Fire TV. Recently, they've created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And it includes all of us here at Locked On. We're going to be on Fire TV. And most of the big pro leagues and the college conferences, Fire TV channels let you dive in to all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. You like those? They're there. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. Learn more about it. You can visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That is Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers. Thank you for helping us out and helping us grow. Share the word. Tell people about us. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe. That helps us out. We're approaching 7,000 subscribers. We're getting close on YouTube. You can share and follow, like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And once again, don't forget our website at talkbig10 10.com. All of our podcasts go there eventually, all archived right there, and group by team too, your favorite school. Look, we're going to talk more about this next week, but the Buckeyes, they're beginning, spring football. All eyes are on new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly and the quarterback room there. Got 5 of them. It's a crowded room, and transfer Will Howard seems to be the clubhouse leader for getting that job. You got Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, and they got the 2 5-star freshmen, Aaron Nolan and Julian Sayin. Kelly says the QB1 job will be decided on the field. He says in his experience, the more organic the competition is, the better. Meaning he really don't want to name anybody right now or give a false impression that somebody may be the leader for that job right now. So he's going to take his time and let the guys on the field play things out. But it sounds like all 5 will have a legitimate shot at the job. But I would bet on Will Howard at least to start with, the transfer that came in. And there are questions at defending national champion Michigan as they look for J.J. McCarthy's replacement as well. Of course, there's Alex Orji, who played a little bit more of a runner than a passer than from what we've seen, at least so far. Jim Harbaugh once said he looked like Herschel Walker at quarterback, just a big, strong guy who can run. Not the only big quarterback at Michigan. Jaden Danigal is 6'5", 235 pounds. Jaden Davis, he's a true freshman. He's already enrolled early, getting the feel for things. There's Jack Tuttle, who's bounced around from a few schools, including from Indiana. He was at Michigan last year as a backup. Got an extra year from the NCAA on an appeal. 7th-year player, backing everybody out. Maybe he'll make a run for the starting job. I don't know. There's Davis Warren, largely been a scout quarterback up to this point as well. So that's what spring football is all about, figuring out, climbing up the depth chart, seeing what you can do, and then we'll keep our eyes on it as well. Now, let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a moment and the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're playing in the Big Ten tournament now, and they'll be back in the NCAA tournament soon enough. A national championship is the only thing that is missing from the stellar career of Caitlin Clark, and she'll be the presumptive number 1 pick in the WNBA draft upcoming. They came up short last year against Angel Reese and LSU. It was amazing final last year, and we'll see. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we get a rematch. But given the Hawkeyes' deep run last year and the fact that they had a target on their back all season long, They're battle tested. They're very battle tested. There's not going to be a lot that's going to be thrown at them that they can't handle. So they're going to be ready for any environment that comes their way here in the postseason. In fact, Coach Lisa Bluter was talking about every single game this year for the Hawkeyes felt like a miniature NCAA tournament. And not only did the Hawkeyes sell out all the women's basketball games, even before the season started at Carver Hawkeye Arena, all games were sold out. That's never happened before the season like that. But every road game they've played since Thanksgiving has been sold out. Everybody wants to come see Caitlin Clark play. Everybody wants to see if their team can beat Iowa. Everyone wants to see how their team stacks up against Iowa. Celebrities are now dotting the stands with fans out there because it's cool. It's cool to be seen at an Iowa women's basketball game. Caitlin Clark and her teammates are like the Beatles of college basketball right now. A lot of fun. There's only really one downside I can think of as they get ready for the postseason here. They have not been in a lot of close games. I think they can handle, but they haven't been in a lot. And, should one of these games come down to the wire? Who knows? Anything can happen at that point. They've lost. I've seen them lose a couple of close games this year in the games I've watched. I mean, I remember Ohio State took them to overtime, ended up beating them. There was the game at Nebraska. Nebraska won there. They stormed the court. Both schools stormed the court, actually. They were beat soundly on the road in Bloomington. So those are 3 of the 4 losses that they've had this year. Otherwise, Iowa's pretty much been winning comfortably and blowing people out. So, and maybe that'll continue in the postseason. But if a game gets close, watch out. We'll see what happens. But other than that, I think they're favorites to go pretty far this year. Speaking of the women's tournament, we're now here we are on Friday. The four top seeds: Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, and Michigan State. They began play after earning their double byes. Depending on what time you're watching this podcast here on a Friday, 12:30 Eastern time, 11:30 local time in Minneapolis. Maryland takes on number 1 seed Ohio State today. 25 minutes after that game is over, Nebraska takes on number 4 seed Michigan State. At 6:30 Eastern, number 2 seed Iowa and Caitlin Clark, they will take on Penn State. By the way, all these games are on the Big Ten Network today. And then after that, the nightcap tonight, 3 seed Indiana takes on the winner of Michigan, Minnesota. Just in all transparency, Michigan versus Minnesota is being played right now while we're taping this podcast. Michigan had the lead in the second half for that one. So, and then the semifinals begin at noon Eastern. And then shortly thereafter, 25 minutes after that, the second semifinal, that's Saturday. Those will be on the Big Ten Network as well. And then the Big Ten Championship will be Sunday. It's at noon Eastern. That one is on CBS. Hey, don't forget, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube called Locked On Sports Today. Here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On. That's us. Plus our national shows covering every single league. We're there from time to time. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe there. After you subscribe to Locked On Big Ten, or maybe catch another episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as we're done. Invite you to do all of that. All right. Like we do every Friday going into the weekend, we make our picks. This is the last regular season weekend of the men's Big Ten basketball schedule. So we have our thoughts on that. It's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. I want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are just right for the role. And it's just like finding the right quarterback for your team. Look at Ohio State, Michigan. They got like 5 guys between them to try and figure out who's going to be the starter. You need a new starter in the office. Use LinkedIn Jobs to help find the right person for your office. They have the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board, by the way. It's a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire, and it gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. LinkedIn knows that the small businesses are, if you're involved in one, you got to wear a lot of hats. You got to do a lot of things. Sometimes the last thing you want to do is go take the time to collect resumes and interview people. Use LinkedIn Jobs to help help you with all of this. They are constantly finding ways to make this process easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. And you can post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's do it. Let's take a look at this week. It's hard to believe it's the last weekend of the regular season for Big Ten for men's basketball. So we'll put it on the screen here, all the games, full screen. If you're on audio only, I'll describe it to you and give you my thoughts and see which way we're going to go here. And these home games are senior day, a big emotional day that can help the game play out a certain way. So let's check it out. There is one Saturday game this weekend in the Big Ten. It is Minnesota at Northwestern. And that's at 9:00 Saturday night special on the Big Ten Network, 9:00 Eastern time. And I really like Northwestern at home, senior day, all of this. Minnesota coming off a tough loss against Indiana. I like the Wildcats, so give me that. Now let's go to Sunday basketball. Nebraska is at Michigan. Sunday at 12:30 Eastern on the Big Ten Network. The question here is, Michigan's had a horrible season, but senior day, can it be emotional? Juwan Howard probably is last game at home here before that situation happens. Nebraska not quite as good on the road as they are at home, but I think Nebraska is a way better basketball team than Michigan. I will pick Nebraska in this game, despite what will be a very emotional day at Michigan. Wisconsin at third-ranked Purdue. That is Sunday at 12:30 Eastern on Fox. National game there. You know what? Purdue, they had all the emotions of finally locking up the regular season Big Ten championship. If this game were in Wisconsin, I might go with the Badgers. But again, it's going to be senior day. Zach Edey's going to be there with his mom. I think there's no way Purdue loses this game against Wisconsin. So give me the Boilermakers in that one. Also at 2:00 on the Big Ten Network, 2:00 Eastern time Sunday, Ohio State is at Rutgers. Ohio State's playing really well lately. What, 4 or 5? They're 18-12. I mean, you win this one, you're 19 wins. You win a couple in the Big Ten tournament next week. After that horrible first most of the season, does Ohio State actually get into the tournament after making the coaching change after firing Chris Holtmann? I like Ohio State. They got something to play for here. Give me the Buckeyes over Rutgers in this game, although Rutgers will make them earn it. We've got Michigan State at Indiana, Sunday, 4:30 CBS. Indiana is another team. They've won 3 in a row. It's too little, too late. We heard that Mike Woodson is definitely coming back. But then we heard that their number 1 recruit and only recruit decided he's not coming to Indiana. Indiana has no recruits as of today coming in tomorrow. They've got a couple of seniors here for senior day, so they got those 2 spots. Probably going to lose a couple other kids. Ware's going to the NBA. So they're going to have some openings. And as of right now, no recruits. So Michigan State at Indiana, I just only because this is at Bloomington, I will give the edge to the Hoosiers here against Tom Izzo's team, although, Izzo needs the win too. But give me the Hoosiers, 4:30 on CBS. We'll also look at number 12 ranked Illinois taking on Iowa. Sunday night, 7:00, FS1. Iowa's another one. Iowa's in the same exact boat as Ohio State. Just a slow start. They finally got things rolling. They're scoring some points. They're winning games. It's at home. Senior day at Iowa. I like Iowa to upset Illinois in this game, get their 19th win, and start playing the Big Ten tournament next week and see what happens. So Ohio State and Iowa. Like a month ago, you said no chance. You got a chance. They're still alive. They get into that Big Ten tournament, and then we'll see what happens about the NCAA tournament. And then finally, we got Maryland at Penn State, Sunday night, 7:30, Big Ten Network. It is the last game of the regular season. And because this is at Penn State, I'll take Penn State on this one for the senior day and senior night and the home finale. So there you have it. Those are our picks going into the Final weekend of the regular season for the Big Ten for the men. So what do you think? Hit me up on Twitter or X at TalkBig10, number 10. Our website, talkbig10number10.com. And of course, comments on YouTube are always welcome. I'll be flipping through those over the weekend. So hit me up or go back and forth at each other. Either way, I'm entertained by it. Be sure to subscribe before you go. Help us out. Get us up to 7,000. We're really close. Subscribe and follow this podcast. It's free to subscribe. No other obligation. You just click a button. It's that simple. And you can follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. The audio comes out about 4 a.m. Eastern time. The video comes out about 6 a.m. every weekday on YouTube. And watch another episode of us right after this one on Locked On Big Ten, or check out our friends at Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day. Locked On Sports Today. That will do it for us. That'll get you into the weekend. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I thank you for checking us out as always. Tell your friends about us. That always helps us out a lot as well. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.